Marie, whakalofa atu, welcome to Talanoa Subtle Friday Night Live. Now, thank you so much for tuning in. I know, yes, please be aware, we're islanders and Indians and all these people who love to be late, so it's about being generous with our time. All right, so getting rolling right into it, I'd love to share it with my co-host for tonight. Please welcome to Liao. Liao, how are you? Whiwhi
Talofa, everybody. You know who the late one is, right? Just saying.
Yeah,
Anyway, great
it's
for you to join us tonight. Thanks for having us.
awesome. And our special guest tonight is someone who has made their way from a distant land. She came over. She's been working heavily in finances. She's also come from a farming background, and she's actually working in the deep south. She's someone who's got kids. She's got a husband. She's got a wonderful insight also into how New Zealand is from a person who migrated recently. Not only that, this is a person who also gave up her citizenship that she had to throw in with New Zealand. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to our special guest for today, and this is Jaspreet.
Hi
Jaspreet,
there.
welcome.
Hi guys. Thank you
Welcome.
so much for having me.
Awesome. Now, Jaspreet, just for our viewers out there, now, just in a minute or less, if you could just give us a quick hot fire sort of bio of where you come from and where you are right now.
Hi. I currently live in Tuatapere, Southland. My husband and I, we manage quite a few cows, 1,500 cows for a large equity partnership. We immigrated to New Zealand in 2009. I'm what would be called an army brat, even at age 42. I come from multiple generations in the Indian Army. So my dad retired as a lieutenant colonel. My brother is currently a serving colonel in mechanized infantry. And I've moved around quite a bit, quite a nomad. Within India, I changed 9 schools, 2 universities.
Whoa.
And in New Zealand, we spent the initial 6 years, 2009 to 2015, in the Waikato near Otorohanga. The South called in 2015. I'd had my daughter then, and we moved to a place near Invercargill, just outside. And just last year, we moved to Tuatapere, our third job in 13 seasons.
Awesome. Awesome. Look, thank you so much for that. Now, I'm aware that you have a very strong thought on different areas, and you and I have had a discussion previously. And firstly, your humility. I know you did not say anything like this at all, but just for you guys out there, Jaspreet was actually very humble. She didn't want to push out her views as to what she saw was going wrong in New Zealand. It took me a little while to sort of be a pushy guy. And that's why, but when she did speak, man, we need to hear what people like this actually do see, in this nation and what is going on, what is happening here. Now, that episode will be coming up very shortly. I'm sure we'll get that put up there as well. Josh has said, awesome, go Southland. Oh, okay. Woo! Is that rugby? All right, cool. Good on you. Thank you so much for joining us, Josh. That's awesome as. Okay, right, guys. Let's have a bit of a chit chat. We want to get stuck in. Interestingly enough, we've had the latest COVID figures. Now, help me out here. What is it? 19 in Auckland or something like that. Is that about right? Have I got that right? I don't know. It's about 19.
Yeah, we are in the low double digits. Yeah.
Low double digits, yes, and we're still pretty much shut down quite heavily and not allowed to do anything. And yeah, I have to say for myself, I've seen multiple small businesses, so people I know who actually were struggling but enjoying the struggle, and this second harsh lockdown has actually just destroyed them. They're gutted, and I'm doing what I'm just having chats with them, and but they're broken. Broken would be the correct word, and it's not fair. What do you
Nice.
guys
It's
think about
not.
this?
Auckland has one third of the country's population virtually. And when Auckland shuts down, it's going to have a flow on effect on all of us. So, yeah, this can't be easy.
Hmm. What do you think, Lilian?
Wow. This is now like day 43 here in Auckland, and we have now gone into the school holidays. And this is wreaking havoc. And just because people aren't saying it, it doesn't mean it's not happening. It's been very distressful for people, and not even outside. We have on our playground just at the park there. There's huge danger signs around it. Danger signs around everything, so none of the kids can go out there. We're just everything just smells of fear, and it's been very, very difficult. So I'm not going to play it down. This has been a terrible lockdown for a lot of people.
But but aren't we saving lives? Isn't this saving lives? Isn't that the call that we have now? That by shutting down everything, we're actually saving lives. Isn't that what it's
Wait,
about?
sorry, whose life are we saving? Sorry,
Yeah, yep. Well, I hear you.
whose
I
life are
hear
we
you.
talking about here? I've just
Yes.
this week been delivering food out to for people, and they are having it hard. They don't have any other options, Elliot. There's no other options, and so the more things that we have, um, that we have to face each day. This is, what lives are we talking about here? What
Yeah,
is safety when we have people with depression and mental health issues and suicidal. All of these are things that we've kept on the low because of our safety.
yeah, that's fair. And I do know that in terms of this week being Mental Health Week, it's also quite noticeable that we had the stats, I think it was 2 weeks ago, where we've had massive increases in youth parasuicidality, which is that suicidal behaviour that has led to hospitalisation. That's severe cutting and also suicide attempts. And that has actually gone up, and I believe the numbers are approximately 40% as from the through the lockdowns of what we've seen. So our young are struggling greatly, and it's not fair on them. And definitely, one thing I would say is, look, hey, don't worry. I know it sounds harsh, but honestly, don't worry. That let the adults let the adults lose their mind and get all scared and run around like chooks with their heads cut off. Let them do that. You don't need to do that, all right? It's okay. Let the adults freak out, be like dumb old people. And by the way, can I just say happy birthday, Joss? Joss, happy birthday! I believe Joss is 19 today, so happy birthday. I hope it's a great one. 19 years old, eh? Woo!
Are you sure he was talking about that and not about how many cases there were?
Thank you,
Radio.
Joss. I
You know
respect
what?
that as Seki.
It reminds me. It reminds me of this radio show,
Let
and
me have another drink of.
and they said, "Oh, congratulations to the grandmother who is 111," and then they came back and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, the grandmother was ill."
Oh,
Oh my God.
okay, thank you.
So
19,
I'm just
19 at heart. 19 at heart, eh? We'll go with that one. We'll go with that one.
see. Josh
Awesome.
is saying he's old.
Yeah. Oh, good on you, good on you. So let's just say, while we're talking, there's all these comments coming in. Denise, yes, you can't live, so what are we saving exactly? Yeah, absolutely fair point. Yeah, spot on there, Denise. And a lot of struggles going on. In fact, I believe that this week came out a report, very heavy duty report that came out. It was no surprise to anyone at all that the MIQ situation is actually causing great harm to our people.
Yes. I saw
We
that
know
one, that
that.
mental health. Yep.
Absolutely. I mean, look, we knew this. And you're saying there, psychologists say there's emergency evidence of long-term and in some cases severe effects. As many of you will know, that I train tradies, especially the essential service tradies, and really the what I'm hearing back from them going through MIQ is that they're stuck in a room for 22 to 23 hours a day. And they're released out for maybe 2 hours for exercise, and then they've got to go straight back in, and they don't have interaction. They don't have the ability to engage in normal human discourse. So
It's
it's absolutely problematic.
dehumanizing, literally.
Yeah, it really is.
Absolutely. Yep. So yeah, dehumanizing it really is. Look at this. Carrie Ann said here. For Carrie Ann, it was a feeling of being lost and unmotivated, and she was still a bit rattled 1 month later. In my more brutal times, I can't help but think that sometimes there is a fascinating case study in terms of psychological damage caused by, for example, when prisoners get absolutely cut in on the side of themselves. I think they deserve it in most cases, but it's still quite a damaging sort of psychological issue that we have going on there. And these are for people who we need in here. But yeah. So popping along there. Evening, Elliot Liao. Oh, hello, Vanetta. Good to see you. Good to see you going off there. It has been hard on teams. Absolutely right. Hi guys. Great to see Jasprit Puparai. Yes, hello Danielle. Oh, Danielle is Waikato, I believe. I think she's a mighty Waikato person, so that's pretty cool as well. And I did see a little pop in there. No, that got Ken has said, who is the NC leader, Elliot? Well, you're lucky, Ken. We happen to have a board member amongst us. So, board member Liao, would you like to answer that question?
Hi, Ken. We don't have a leader right at this moment because it's more about quality than quantity, right? So we're waiting for the right person to come along and take a lead on a new Conservative. But don't give up hope. We have good people in there. There's my plug for New Conservative.
Nice one. Okay, very good. Vanetta, I'm not 100% after a week later, maybe back in hospital. Vanetta, be well. God be with you. We'll be praying for you. And look, just take it easy. And thank you so much for speaking out. All right.
Absolutely.
Coughing up blood. This has been around vaccinated people. Yep. No, we hear you. All right, Melanie McQueen. Good, awesome. All right. So I just wanted to also. Hang on. I was about to go on, but hello. Thank you, Denise. Very good. Very good. Okay. So I wanted to show you a bit of this, and have a quick look here.
For those of you who choose not to be vaccinated, that's your choice. But don't expect to do everything that vaccinated people do, even when we hit 80%. And I want to make that very clear. I don't want people to think they can sit back, let everybody else do the hard work, and then turn up when it's 80% and get everything else that vaccinated people are. That is not the right message. I want to say very clearly that if you're not vaccinated, you will not have the freedom or the freedoms that vaccinated people have, even when we get to 80% double dose. And it won't only be government decision. A private business might choose only to welcome patrons who are vaccinated. An airline might say you can only fly with us if you're vaccinated.
So that is, of course, New South Wales Premier Gladys. She has been known for extremely draconian style lockdowns, very, very vicious, and it's been quite interesting. Her and Daniel Andrews have both engaged in some very heavy problems that have led to protests/riots on the streets of Australia because they are so brutal in how they've done their laws. Well, of course, the news came out very recently that some big news has popped in, and this is just from today, so just want to share this with everyone who may not know about what's going on right now. Very, very big news.
Development in New South Wales politics that has just emerged. The New South Wales Commission Against Corruption has just released a statement in the past few minutes confirming that it will conduct further inquiries as part of Operation Keppel, which was looking into the conduct of Daryl Maguire, but they will be focusing on the conduct of the Honourable Gladys Berejiklian in terms of her behaviour between 2012 and 2018. Reading from the statement a short time ago, they're investigating whether Gladys Berejiklian engaged in conduct that constituted or involved a breach of public trust by exercising public functions in circumstances where she was in a position of conflict between her public duties and her private interest as a person who was in a personal relationship with the then New South Wales Member of Parliament, Daryl Maguire. Also, whether or not her behaviour constituted or involved the partial exercise of any of her official functions in connection with grant funding, and it goes on whether or not her behaviour constituted or involved the dishonest or partial exercise of any of her official functions and or a breach of public trust. So this is a very significant development. A press conference, a media conference with the Premier has been scheduled for 1 o'clock. In the past, Gladys Berejiklian has always said that she has done nothing wrong in relation to this matter and that she has not been a subject of investigation. That has now changed. In the past, she has also said that anyone who is a member of Parliament who is the subject of a corruption investigation should be standing down until that is carried out. So all the focus today is on whether or not she will remain in the position as Premier by the end of the day. There has been fevered speculation building up to this. She cancelled a...
So I just wanted to cut bits off there. So what do we think? What do we think's going on there? And in terms of the lockdown, what does that do for their lockdown? Does this mean more freedoms, less freedoms? What do you guys think? What's going to happen here?
It is very much up in the air, but I think Australia is so far down this path that for them taking a step back would almost be like a loss of face, wouldn't it? Daniel Andrews is still there, right on his perch. I would not be expecting anything, to swing too far the other way in a hurry. What do you think, Leah?
Yeah, I just understanding a little bit about what has been happening there. I feel that this is just the beginning. It's like a unraveling of possibly more corruption that needs to be exposed. I think it's fantastic that first of all that she's resigned and not sort of taken away. She's actually done the good thing and actually stepped down because this investigation is around corruption. And it is about wanting to trust your leaders like we trust ours. Sorry.
Oh, were you?
Anyway, yes, I'm over to you.
Absolutely, I tend to agree. I think that it's interesting. I don't think there is a link, or rather, perhaps people were just looking into her life so much so that the secrets, these skeletons in the closet, were just going to plug out. What I agree with you, Jaspreet. I think that it's too hard to know which way things are going to turn. On the surface, it's like, oh, good, yeah, karma. She's just desserts, or some of the horrific things she's done, and she's going to get it. What might be tough is whoever replaces her, whether it is going to be her deputy or another person chosen by her particular group. And I think therein lies a bit of danger. You're right, Dan Andrews has just carried on brutal policies that he's
Absolutely.
going for. In fact, he's calling out, he's saying plus 90%, and they're just not going to stop. He just doesn't care. It's quite incredible. And don't forget that in particular, outside of Gladys, Dan Andrews, of course, he is the progressive of Australia. He is the progressive ruler of Australia. He's the one who put in the racial type of education into the Victoria system. He also put in safe schools in Victoria, which led to mates and dates here. So he has got a very well-known track record of engaging in some of the most woke policies that you'll find in Australia. And as per being woke, it means that he's happy to shut down and suppress freedoms.
Melbourne, if you know, was it 2 years ago, it signed up as a UN strong city, a United Nations strong city. And last year, November, legislation was introduced in their parliament. It is not passed yet, but amongst other things, it gives it says different police powers to be given in an emergency. So there's an amendment of, police powers in an emergency. So it began this last November. And reading through the bill, it says emergency is such a wide-ranging topic that it cannot be narrowed down enough. So emergency is any emergency that the Premier sees fit, and it gives complete immunity to whosoever is acting, it could be police, paramilitary, defense, whatever, and it includes any foreign allied military, police, paramilitary support. So they are actually saying that Australia could have foreign troops on the ground against its own citizens.
Wow.
So dangerous.
And that's a stunning piece of legislation. I just read it. I don't know if you saw it. I put a post on it 2 or 3 days ago. So for a year, that legislation has been languishing. It was introduced last November. Still not passed, but that is it. It actually says including police, paramilitary, any foreign allied forces to quell.
Really?
Yeah.
That's in their parliamentary.
That's a bill. That's a
language.
bill that is still stuck somewhere. But yeah, it is there.
That's extraordinary. Now, just please, you actually mentioned a term there right at the start of when you were saying that. What is a UN strong city?
Right now, UN. When you look at UN, United Nations, it is sort of the big daddy of us all. We have so many laws, legislations happening in New Zealand also, and everything seems to be tied up. Oh, we have the Stockholm Convention. Oh, we have this Paris Agreement. All of these were technically supposed to be non-binding stuff. But what is happening is our government, just like in Australia, they are making these a part of a legislation. The moment you do that, it becomes a law. So something that was a UN directive for which you've not had a mandate is going to come out. Now, these strong cities were supposed to be the hubs, like Melbourne has a substantial, I wouldn't be able to say the exact number, but has a substantial amount of the economic activity happening in Victoria, a large amount of population around there. So these are cities that have been earmarked for future prosperity, they say. Strong cities, this is where you will have those pack and stack buildings. So if you've seen even in New Zealand, the quarter acre dream is going. You have property developers over the last decade, 40%, there's been a 40% increase decade on decade on flats, apartments, and so on. So these cities are the ones that are going to be models for that. They are going to have street cameras. They're going to be ultra secure for women. They are going to be tracked completely.
Yes, I remember when they I believe they did a pilot program in Darwin for a little while, and then they were seeking to see if they could actually spread that out to the rest of Australia.
Yep.
So that's now my understanding is that's very similar, if not pretty much a same version of the social credit system in China. Is that correct?
Very close. I mean, if I quote from the exact paperwork from UN, it says launched in the United Nations in September 2015, the SCN, Strong Cities Network, is the first ever global network of mayors, municipal policymakers, and practitioners united in building social cohesion and community resilience to counter violent
Social
extremism in all forms. And these are the very cities where you will hear narratives like violence against women, gender equality, white extremists, all of this. These are the cities from which you will hear that, what looks like to me to a very socially disruptive, divisive narrative. These are the cities from which it will emerge, dividing us. All in the name of unity, of course.
Yeah, and you mentioned that social cohesion, which of course appeared quite a number of times in the Royal Commission through the report around Tarrant and how that whole situation unfolded.
It was very like Christchurch is one of the ECLAE cities. ECLAE is again a United Nations driven program. So Wellington, Palmerston North, Hamilton, Dunedin, Christchurch, these are all ECLAE cities. And strangely enough, everything seems to happen in Christchurch, Anything big that's happening, it happens. It's focused in that place. And isn't it amazing how different the narrative was? When it was Brenton Tarrant doing that, you had the Jacinda Ardern saying that this was one foreign individual doing this, they are us. But that is not to say that New Zealand doesn't have an ugly undercurrent of white supremacy. When the other attack happened in the supermarket in Auckland, it was one individual. And you virtually hear nothing of it. Whereas when I was following the Christchurch, this thing, my daughter's birthday is 15th March. I never forget that. And her birthday, the news is always full of all of this. And the news went on for days and days. You had breakfast hosts, 7 Sharp, everything. It was like they didn't want it out of our memory. You had immediately people being arrested, so on. I had a friend of mine who was actually visited by the police. He's a white guy. About what his views were, because he's otherwise a strong political commentator. He's kept a low profile ever since. But what was his views about white supremacy? And the guy talks, a policeman visited him, and this fellow invited him in, and he says 2 hours later, this policeman staggered out with his head in his hands, because this friend of mine, is quite a wordsmith. So that policeman had met his match, but that's what happened after Christchurch. There was a witch hunt.
Yeah.
This time around, the newspapers couldn't forget it fast enough. What was the
Yeah.
difference? What was the difference?
Absolutely. Yep.
The only difference I see was the race of the attacker. Is that what it is about?
Well, and of course, there seems to be very much and in New Zealand anyway, there is a strong push to criticise / outright be hostile towards the Christian side of New Zealand. It's been quite a fascinating one to witness, and we do expect some more attacks to go on to remove elements. Just quickly there, Sarah Jane has actually asked a question: is Auckland one? And I assume she's talking about rather than a birthday than a SCN. Yes.
It is not. It has come under. It is definitely under one of the UN programs. There's 5 or 6 of them. They have all these WizTech words. But if you're talking about if it's under the shadow of the UN, very definitely yes, yes. And Phil Goff has led it.
Yes, of course. And we know that Jacinda, I mean, a Labour Party seem to just be very much aligned to the United Nations. It's quite extraordinary.
It will be very interesting. I mean, that book that I was talking about that's available this weekend for a price of a cuppa, it is laid out there exactly what the United Nations plans are.
Hey, you know what? While we're there, you know what? I want to bring that up. So guys, So Jasprit was talking about I think it's a great book to read to grab onto, and it's this one here called Agenda 21. All right,
and it is published by the United Nations, so it is straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
So this is actually published by the UN.
Yeah.
It is too. Look, there you go. The UN is actually the author. And you can't get more conservative than that. You know, we say, look, don't take it from some sort of propaganda or some biased aspect. Go straight.
I know Grant Robertson. He didn't like it. It's all a conspiracy theory, but
we might be entering airspace soon.
But here they're actually talking about it. Absolutely right. And we were just having a quick little gaze through the parts here. You know, Trump. Interestingly enough, it is quite interesting that Mr. Trump has a lot of what he said during was attacked, assaulted. He was absolutely cast upon, mocked, and hated. Yet a lot of what he has said is now being clearly shown to be correct, and I think that's quite fascinating. And it's very interesting. Here we've got a very good part here. Good reference for those who want to combat Agenda 21. How? By actually reading the authors, the United Nations own network. So I think that is actually quite a powerful book. I just want to show you guys up here. It is extremely cheap. Boom.
What's it? We're just sleeping.
All right. So if you've got the Kindle, if you've downloaded the Kindle, I've got the Kindle on my phone. It's $4.46. Otherwise, paperback is $15.99. So you know, I can't believe that we're actually plugging a United Nations documentation. So.
My life is sort of passed under the shadow of the UN. From 92, it's been nearly 30 years.
Yes.
So, bit of a one-trick pony I am. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Good on you. So that's actually something which guys, you know, if you want to have a read of, grab it. You know, $4.50. I'm going to buy it. It fits within my lunch money that my wife allows me to have. So thank you, Sarah Jane. Thank you for answering. Excellent. Thank you so much. Jen has said they can't silence us forever. You're absolutely right.
Absolutely.
You know, that's absolutely right. They can't silence us forever. What we don't want, and this is where it comes into a bit of trouble, is historically speaking, a large amount of the population don't realise that oppression and suppression is upon them until it's too late. And then it takes decades to get back out of it. And in the meantime, lots of people die and all that sort of thing. So, you know, I think sometimes that the memes get some things incorrect. But sometimes when you're reading some memes where they say, if you ever wanted to know what you would do in 1930s Germany, you're doing it now. There is more and more accuracy to that than not. And I think we are living in those times where we're on a knife point. And I think that actually goes to the entire Western civilization, not just New Zealand. But what do you guys think about that sort of element? How are we placed right now in terms of civilization, in terms of the annals of history? How are we doing? What do you think?
I think the Matrix came out at the right time. because then we thought it was a great movie, and we had great acting in it, and made you think for a little bit, and then you sort of park it until things like this start to unfold and unravel, and then you're asking yourself, wait. I believed for so long. I trusted, I believed, I trusted in my government. I felt that they had the best, our best interest, until we start to see things where they are overreaching, with their authority and with their power, and we are left reeling and going, surely this can't be, surely, because so hard to wake up from that, hard to wake up from the fact that actually they are not for you.
Well said. What do you think, Jaspreet?
I actually went into it pretty deep recently. This Anzac Day, my daughter marched in the Tuatapere Anzac Day parade. So we are homeschoolers. After that, I covered the First World War with her, a bit of it. We did Flanders Field, a bit of First World War poetry, and a few other things. And we moved to the Second World War. And I was last month, I was browsing through, looking for some, age-appropriate material for a 6.5-year-old. And I came across this documentary from the Auschwitz Museum, and definitely not 6.5 years old material, but it was stunning. It's a 24-minute documentary, and they have literally shown that how an emergency was declared. There was a fire in the German parliament. Hitler seized power. The first thing was the Hitler Youth. That's the first thing that came forward. And you had children, you had book burnings. And if you realize, our National Library, Wellington, it dumped 550,000 books, was it?
Yes,
More than half
yes,
a million, I know.
Yeah.
And I couldn't help but think, is that a modern day, that book burning, book culling, what is it? And then it moved on to, it had good examples of what was actually being taught to children in school. There were young kids who were there were charts, and they had side profiles of people. And this was like, this profile, that's a Roma, that's a Jew, that's what a Negro looks like. And these children were being taught with rulers there. And they were talking about pseudoscience and how these children were taught like Aryan race is superior. And this is not. Some very, very chilling similarities as I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, well said. Yeah. So, I mean, we are. I also think about George Orwell, one of the cliched authors when they think about this time. It's, it's Orwellian, and we talk about how similarities are right now, and perhaps the preceding 6-7 years of George Orwell style books and stories and how he put it out there. Yet we know that George Orwell was actually writing in terms of the reality of what he was going through at the time, and he was just articulating it into a storybook that children would understand. And it really looks like we're right in the midst of it. It's incredibly shocking.
Ideally, in an ideal world, we should be able to trust our government, and a lot of people are just that, really very trusting. But we forget that in the last century, the biggest killer, unsurpassed by anything else, was a term that's called democide, killing by our own government in so many of these communist regimes. That was the biggest killer. Over 100 million people died.
In fact, actually, and you're absolutely right. The fact that socialism, or rather Marxism, killed over 100 million people, men, women, and children. And that's actually, in terms of world deaths, that's, in terms of the ideology, forget religion, forget any other type of thought process. It has been Marxism that has murdered more human beings than any other type of ideology, whether religious or otherwise. And that, I think, is a fascinating, horrific thing to realize. And we go through it again. And we're starting to see our own politicians are saying, comrade, in the halls of leadership in New Zealand. It's shocking.
I have just put forward a link on the chat, Elliot, if you can see it. That was a Hawaii professor, Rummel, who's passed, but his work lives on in the annals of the University of Hawaii. And he's the directory in which it is, it's called Power Kills, and he's actually laid these statistics out in great detail about. Are you able to see that?
I think we can.
And there it is, murder by government. If you go through this, this gentleman passed away, I think, nearly a decade ago, this professor. But this was his work. And if you go through it, it is very chilling, but it's hard to deny something that's there in black and white.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
just
actually
absolutely
just
shocking.
came across that word by you, actually, democide. And I was like, I need to look that up. What does it mean? And as I started to read it, yeah, it's just not a word that I've seen before. And
Just, I think, army background. I was, think, spent many a weekends with the mates, friends, dad, brother, chatting about stuff. As I told you, both my father and my brother spent 10 years when their battalions were rotated under the United Nations to Africa. 92, 93 was when my dad went to Somalia. So it's been 20, 30 years now, nearly, since I've been looking into the backgrounds of you. And I was a teen then and 42 today. But yeah, you see the path that United Nations has been going down on. Just far more
Yeah,
easier to research now via Google. It's all there.
yep,
But at one time, I used to go through old, musty, dusty libraries and old magazines trying to see what was happening.
yep, absolutely. Right, yeah. Phew. Okay, so we need to be aware, and I think the ideas of what we're doing right now, talking about it, sharing things, being, allowing information and facts to get out there, I think that's wonderful. And I actually really, I'm looking forward to reading the Agenda 21 book this weekend. Actually, I can't wait for it just to have a look at what's linking up with today. Um, a little bit more closer to home, and also something a little bit more sad. And to be fair, it's very likely that this is related. Of course, is that today we realised, or we've learned, that the water bill, or rather the Three Waters bill, is now through. All right, so this is the water services bill right here. Omnibus, the one that's called Three Waters. Nanaya Mahuta, of course, is the person who's in charge of it, and it's going to get passed. Right, so that's passed. Bill introduced. First reading went to the select committee. That is where the public are able to have their say, so to speak. Second reading was done on 21st of September. That's
Yeah.
just that's less than a week ago, or approximately a week ago. Then the whole house had a debate on it. 23rd of September and 28th of September had its final reading, voted through, and now it's just waiting for a royal assent, which basically means it's passed. And I think that's quite sad, but expected, to be fair. We know that pretty much all of nearly the entire collection of local councils hated this bill and have fought against it. We know that, and yet Nanaya Mahuta has just rumbled on. She's already known. She already stripped the voice of the people of local councils who said we just want all people to be treated all equally, not by skin color. Nanai Mahuta, of course, stripped away the voice of the people, and now here she is again. She's just ramming it through. There's a couple of good things in the bill, but most of it's actually just terrible, and it's apartheid as far as I'm concerned. But what do you guys think about this bill anyway?
Liao, would you like to go first?
Just our rights, I just slowly stripped away from the very basics of our rights. I think about this, and the next, another bill that has been passed during us being locked down. You look at the dates of when they passed the extreme abortion bill. You look at the dates, and, we were all locked down. We have been so oppressed by all of these bills that they're wanting to push through. I mean, this is not even, this is one of many that they are, the free, free speech. Will we be able to keep talking like this, when they consider it hate that we
Right.
are speaking the truth? At what point are we going to continue being locked down, not only from our freedoms, but our water, the very basics that belong to us as New Zealand people? I am really disgusted by this, but I'm not surprised. Shocking, but not surprised.
Yeah.
What do you think, Nita Split?
I find it very interesting. Local government in New Zealand, LGNZ, that's called, it is supposed to be a body that represents all our councils and consequently all our stakeholders in a sort of liaison between, your local government and the central government. It is supposed to be pushing forward the interests of the ratepayers. And if I go to lgnz.co.nz, local government page, I have actually just put up a link in the chat also. They had investigated this. Local government New Zealand had investigated this. And the policy paper right at the end says that I will read out exactly from the document. It says, because they kept saying that this entire beast that we have now, the push for it was due to the Havelock North water poisoning. Local government New Zealand said to them 3 years ago that the Havelock North inquiry and the government's 3 water reviews have identified some weaknesses in the current drinking water regulatory system. And we agree with some of the policy fixes, but we don't agree that the entire water sector should be rationalized into a handful of regional water monopolies in the current problem in the drinking water space. There is no concrete problem definition that supports aggregation of the Havelock North inquiry with the drinking water situation of the rest of New Zealand. Further, there's no evidence that these monopolies will be more cost efficient than the current arrangements. There you have it. They have actually turned it down. And
Yes.
what's happened? What happened to the locals' voice? Completely overturned. I submitted to our local council. I think that video is floating around someone on Facebook. I submitted and I asked them, I said, tell me, how do you create 9,000 new jobs and create more efficiency for us? Who's going to be paying those people? They kept saying that if you don't opt into it, it's going to be something in the region of $1,200 to $1,800 per family in 2050, 30 years from today. And they said if you don't opt into it, it'll be $9,800. And I said to our council, I said, even $9,800 doesn't look bad to me. It's just 4.5% annualized over the next 30 years. But please tell me on what basis, because the financial aspect, tell us what your financial assumptions are. No answer, not forthcoming at all. And our local, the Southland District Council Mayor Gary Tong, he writes a newspaper article. So he likes to stay in his own echo chamber. And he wrote pointing to me and another friend of mine who've been, submitting against us consistently over the last year, saying that he's fed up of these keyboard warriors and who keep thinking. He actually drove to the other friend of mine, Alana Barrett. She is a local here and her family's been here, half a century. So he knew her. Gary Tong, our mayor, was earlier a policeman in this district when Alana was growing up. So he drove to her place actually to tell us guys to lay off. And yesterday he's printed this thing where it's in Otago Daily Times saying he's fed up of the avalanche of emails in his mailbox and he's having to empty at least 100 a day. I'm like, have you forgotten who was paying you? Have you forgotten what your role was? What are you doing?
Yes.
So
absolutely.
as far as I'm concerned, I have stopped looking for a reason in treason. There is none. You can't justify this by any stretch of imagination, especially when you don't give me the financial assumption on the basis of which you can say there's a 5-fold increase. You opt in, it's 1,800. Don't opt in, it's 9,800. I said, I don't mind 9,800 in 2050. I don't want 9,800 tomorrow. You're creating 9,000 new jobs. Lies.
I was just thinking, also they have said that they are looking at postponing the local elections next year, postponing it, because I don't think they're very happy about the responses from the mayors. As Stephen said, that the majority of mayors are against this. And so, yeah, the government has ignored the local council's feedback. So what do? They're like, actually, you know what, let's just postpone what we're, any elections or anything for next year. So I think that's, and if you see that they've changed they've extended their the bill, for COVID, will go from May 22 to 2022 to 23. So that would be the election year. So how do we, where do we go from there?
Just look at this. There's this link there. Gary Tong, he's calling us a bloody nuisance, us Southlanders who've rallied against it. I don't know, I've driven 10, 15,000 kilometers just for 3 waters over the last 6 months. That's what we get.
I tell you what, that is. I think that's awesome in a way. That you are,
I agree.
you are that much underneath his skin. I mean, and it's shock. That's contemptuous.
And I'm not asking for anything. I'm not saying anything wrong, anything defamatory. That is, I don't indulge in that. All I've consistently asked for is tell us the assumptions. Tell us the assumptions. Prove your case. Show me that the figures make sense. I mean, I've dragged through carving with driving on. I've dragged my kids along. Homeschoolers, they're never, they're always with me or with dad. If he's too busy on the tractor or carving, he can't have them safely. So there are my kids and me driving in submissions. There's my son wailing on one end, and some kind person took him out of the council hearing. But on the council's YouTube link, I can still hear him screaming his guts out. But it's ridiculous what's happening. There's literally no shred of democracy left.
Yeah, I just can't. I just, this is. I mean, I love this nation. I have a
I love this
personal love
nation.
for
This
it.
is
Yeah, this. So what is all this? What is this filthy stuff that's going on? And I think the question does come up, and I think someone actually did ask this before in our comment section. I think someone did actually say, why are they? Oh, here we go. So Angie, thank you so much, Angie. How do we as a team of 5 million just accept all this? And I can't help but wonder, New Zealand is a peaceful nation. We don't have immigration problems because we're on one side we've got the Pacific Ocean, and on the other side we've got Australia, which provides its own type of war. We don't have to worry about immigration. We don't have to worry about war or famine. We are an agricultural sector nation. We're stable. We don't have to worry too much. There's only 5 million people in New Zealand. There's not many people here. So I think we've just become so, I guess, inured to what's actually happening in the world and to the ideological advancements upon ourselves. And the system that actually protected us originally, we've sort of turned into this, we've sort of twisted, and now we hate the system that originally protected us. And I think that's probably a damning indictment. And like Jasprit's from India. There's a very well understanding of the world overall. And why? Because if I remember correctly, you're in Punjab, which is actually close to some conflicted borders.
Yeah, so we are about
so
100 kilometers from Pakistan as the crow flies. Yeah.
yeah, so you have a deep understanding of and an appreciation of what it means to know and understand what happens in the world. We think about Israel.
Democracy, freedom
Democracy.
extracts a price. Extracts a price. I have
Absolutely.
grown up every weekend, at least a couple of times a month, dad going to pay his respect to some fallen soldier somewhere. Not a week, Punjab, we are just 2% of India's population, the Sikhs. I mean, Punjab is our homeland, and we are 22% of the Indian army. Not a week passes where a coffin doesn't come home wrapped in a tricolor. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but that's what it is. There's Pakistan, Bangladesh, China, a small bit of Afghanistan, Nepal, all these borders, all these active borders. And when you consistently, and then again being in the army, you are aware of other things. You're aware of the human stories that are behind that coffin that comes wrapped in a tricolor and this passing on someone at the airport to receive it. It happens every month, if not every couple of weeks. And when you grow up seeing that, you realize that freedom is very fragile. It extracts a price. New Zealand has been a paradise, a paradise. It's so lovely that people don't have to deal with all of that. But when you get freedom for no price at all, or you take it for granted, then you don't realize when you lose it. It's the same thing if you get something for free, you don't really value it. And again, I try not to not to say this. I feel like maybe it's not my place, just having been here a dozen years, but I feel that is really true. Freedom, if you don't realize its worth when it goes, you won't realize when it's gone.
Yeah, and I think that I think you make a very good point because, in a sense, we didn't really see it too much in the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War was actually really important, but most of us didn't really understand its importance. The last time where we probably had a unified appreciation for the cost would have been World War II. And the
That's
fact
been
is
a long
that
while.
the kids play video games based off World War Two. We see movies of World War Two. It's no longer as a painful realization that we lost people or people came home and they were no longer the same after that war, and that there was a true cost to the freedom that we managed to defend at that time. And I think we have taken it for granted. I think you're right. We have taken it for granted, and now we're in the process of actually having it dismantled before our eyes. And many of the 5 million are not just unaware, but more they don't really want to be aware. I think
It is.
many do want it.
Last year, I saw. Last year lockdown, was it this year? Last year we were in lockdown during Anzac Day, and that time I saw a few days before that, before Anzac Day, I saw of a small village somewhere near Natia, North Island, that was going to have the veterans on the Anzac Day marching on the sidewalk because NZTA wanted $5,000 for a traffic management plan. And that march only happened on the road because Higgins, that roading company, that came to the party. And those older gentlemen who were going to be marching that day, they were grateful to Higgins. I was like, who should be grateful here? Should these guys even be charged? What sort of country have we become that this PC thing of traffic management plan for these gentlemen has to be paid for? And that I'll never forget. I was really apoplectic watching that, seeing that what is happening? Are we that desensitized that we can actually be started demanding? And then you have Wellington and all of these where you have students marching, climate marches, all of these rights and Pride Month march. What it was, Fridays for the Future and climate change and all of that. And there are these kids. Who charges them? Who pays for those costs? Who sponsors those?
Yep. Well said. No, bloody well said, actually. Yep. So, and I think we had one here. So I want to ask you guys actually, because we're here. One thing that we find easy is that we're passionate about this stuff, so we find out things. I'm so honoured and humbled to have been part of a team that exposed a great deal to New Zealand when no one else did. So the team that I was part of, we were the ones to expose gender ideology. We were the ones to expose a UN Migration Compact. We were also the very first ones to call for proper areas of protection with COVID. So we're very proud of that. But this is a question I want to put out to you too. And it's a real question. And I think it's one, if we want to, we need to know that we're sick. We need to know that our democracy is sick. And it has been, I don't think it's sick, rather than it's being sick by being poisoned. And so what we need to do is, what can we do to stop this? So Jaspreet, I'll start with you. What can we do? What can we do to stop this?
In my experience, and I've spent more than a dozen years on Facebook just being really, really quiet. And that's over the last couple of years deciding, right, the battles I don't fight, I'm leaving for my kids to fight. Can't do that. And I decided to start speaking up, I've lost many friends, but I've found some awesome virtual tribes whom one day, hopefully, I'll meet everyone in person. But I found it really effective to make a nuisance of myself at a local government level.
Oh, yeah, obviously.
Yes, obviously. But these are, my local community board, these are lovely people. Most of them are in their mid-60s, early 70s. They are the ones whom I submitted to initially on the three waters, then further on to the council. The same thing happened at the significant natural areas. Now you need to realize LGNZ, local government NZ, is a UN construct. The United Nations, when all of these mayors went on a jaunt to Blenheim in July, was it 19th to 21st of July to Blenheim? It was a UN sponsored. We keep calling it was a local government mayoral conference, but the UN wants it every year. The United Nations does it. So these people have all signed up for that Zero Carbon Act. They've all signed up for Agenda 2030. If you go to any council plan across the country, any long-term plan, you will see sustainable city. Wherever you see sustainable, I, for one, hate the word sustainable because it means anything but sustainable. Yep. So I have been going to local councils, going to my local community board meeting. You will find that all of these meetings are arranged at very inconvenient times. You will find them at 12 noon. You'll have your council post an update about a consult, a drop-in session, 2 hours before it, or maybe one evening before it, and it'll be in the middle of the working day. Collect together, speak to your neighbors, speak across kitchen tables, over the pub, on rugby game sidelines, swimming, whatever. I've done all of that. I've made an utter nuisance of myself, but I really am beyond the point of caring. And I am a person who has social anxiety, I can tell you that. But right now, my outrage trumps my social anxiety at talking in public. Otherwise, that was not me. And talk to people, find babysitters. I mean, that was my state, literally having friends around, someone else, go to these meetings, because these are people who walk, talk, live amongst you. These are people, I mean, I have local people who, if I'm walking down the road, they will cross go on the other side. There are people who will not meet my eye, and that's fine. I am never on a smear campaign. Don't make it personal, but make it about the community, because we keep using the word be kind, community, but we are doing anything but that. These are people who probably themselves also don't realize what's happening. Start reading about the UN agendas. Then start going. I mean, you were just talking, Elliot, and I didn't interrupt you. Then you spoke about how migration is not an issue. Migration is a huge issue. And I can say it, even though I was myself a migrant, 2009. Yesterday, the government approved 165,000 visas. It said, the headline said, Chris Fafoy approves 165,000 visas. Now, that headline was a lie. It approved 165,000 pathways to residency. 2009, when we moved here, residency was hard to get. It took 5 years of work experience. So some of our Indian work experience was recognized. It took a degree. It had an English language test, all of that so far. And after that, you would pull a certificates, a lot of things. Yesterday, they have said anyone who's been in the country for 3 years is now open to be a resident. Now, why do you think that's happening? When we have 362,000 people on social welfare in the period ending June 2021. Why is that happening? You know why it's happening? Because unlike US, we are not landlocked where we can open a border and let everyone come in. We need to legislate it. We are not Europe where, you just have the Mediterranean and people can come over from Africa. People keep thinking, oh, they're very desperate people. I have family who worked in Africa. These people are funded enough. Those people movers or whosoever operates those boats, they charge thousands of dollars per person. That is beyond the reach of an average migrant. And in New Zealand yesterday, because we are so far away, a tiny country at the bottom of the world, we had to legislate it. And 165,000 people got residency or the pathways are open. 2017, the same government came saying that it would reduce. At that point, the migration was about 72,000. It's going to bring it down by 30,000. So it was supposed to be 40,000 per year. We've done 165,000 in one shot. And I'm a migrant. I am saying this openly. How many were truly needed when you had so many people on social welfare? You kept saying essential industries are asking for it. I'm a dairy farmer. We've struggled for workers. I live in, the backwaters of rural Southland. But when we had 350,000 people on the benefit, why were people just letting food go waste? I have friends who are in Pukekohe. Now, they've been here 5 generations. She calls us, they have 50 hectares of market garden. And, they supply to all these restaurants and so on. When level 4 lockdown happened, they had to drive a tractor over lettuces, iceberg lettuces and everything that don't survive because there was no chiller space available right down to Waikato, leave alone Auckland. And no workers were allowed to come in. This is systematic creation of food shortages, systematic destruction of small businesses. There is really no two ways about it.
Wow.
Why are essential industries asking for people? And we have 355,000 on the social welfare system.
Well said. Very well said. Liao, what do you think?
How can we solve this? I feel that we need just a little bit more humanity, bring humanity back. Our what they're doing is not only dividing. Can you just stop that, Darren? Not only are they dividing, but they are bringing into effect the next generation, who don't, like, this past little while, I think the government um, allowed lunches in schools, and I've brought this up before. Lunches in schools where it was available for children to have not only breakfast, they have lunch provided. This kind of thing becomes where they're dependent on government, so the kids are used to it from a very young age, and because of that, we tend to allow them to do it, and then we can, parents can continue to do whatever they want. See, responsibility of looking after your families, we go back to, fatherlessness, all of these issues, underlining issues that have really gotten a hold of New Zealand. And I am back to working in community for a very long time, and even with our homeless, is the giving back responsibility to people to be able to take responsibility for their families, take responsibility for who they are. And, if we love this country enough, we will start to fight back, and fight and say, actually, we've got our prime minister saying, knock on your neighbors, tell on them. But we can turn that around. We as communities can take back what belongs to us, and we can start to care for our neighbors, find out if they need anything, message them, start a Facebook group for your street, look out for them. Start, you can just put a letter in each of their letterbox and say, hey, we're going to start one for our street. Is there anything that you need? We can put tomatoes out in the, if you've got, veggies. We need to go back to the basics and start to care for each other, and really care for each other. So this kindness rubbish is not about kindness at all. And
No,
we need
no.
to take those words that they're using and actually start to care for each other. Start to care for our communities, our neighbors, and actually go, hey, we don't need to have these big things that are coming up from the top, because they don't know. They live up there. They live in that place of, getting, $800,000 a year, to people who are, on the street, to people who are, our poverty rate for our children have risen. When Jacinda said, I'm here for the children, she really has. The poverty has, our poverty. So you're talking about immigration, and yet we still haven't sorted out our homelessness. We still haven't sorted out the child poverty. We haven't sorted out so many issues that they're giving money to, like, Creative New Zealand for the most ridiculous things. I
Nonsense.
just,
Yeah.
just my mind just blows every time the taxpayer union brings up
Oh,
these things that, we spend 100 million on, and so I'm like, okay, just breathe now. Just breathe. What can we do right now? Our pātaka kais that are out there, put food in there, be there, be available for your neighbors, be available for your community, and start to really care for them. It's my little rant.
No, very good. A good rant. A very good rant. Yeah, I do. And look, Salah, and also I think I can't see who it was who said it. Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's been said already. Show actual kindness. Join with each other, be the community that we used to be. I think in terms of the issues, we need to speak everywhere and anywhere. You need to herald it from the rooftops. You also need to speak it in the quiet places and cafes and corners. You speak on it at church or in the mosque. You need to discuss it. Things like the children being groomed to be pushed into sexual oddities and appetites that they shouldn't even know about. As parents and as people of Boo who love this nation, who love democracy, we need to be just talking this out. You hear the words, don't talk about religion and politics. I think those days are gone. Because religion and politics, or specifically politics, and especially secularism, is actually taking over you and your family. And they are choosing to do what they want to do. So this is actually the time to get up and start talking all of the time, everywhere that you can. And that's how we do it. By talking. Don't forget, New Zealand, 2 degrees of separation. You got to know people. And so spread it out there, share it out there, get out there and just talk. Look, we're pretty much a little bit over time. I do want to have a chat about this one aspect, because this is actually a part of it as well, and this also gives a bit of an example as to some of the sad parts that we see here. There's a bit of humour and there's a bit of sadness here, I think, and that's in regards to, of course, we had Efessel Collins who came out and he made a tweet saying basically that Police 10-7 was racist, effectively. He didn't say it was racist, but he said something like, that they just all they do is show brown people when they go to Police 10-7. Police 10-7, of course, is the program that we know that is quite entertaining. It shows drunks, people who are drinking and get drunk and get into fights and some violence. There is an entertainment element to it, but it is very much real in aspects in terms of the crime and criminality that occurs. Generally, petty crime doesn't generally go to the heavy duty stuff. It'll go to that, and it'll also, within it, often they'll actually do up little cases so that, cases of high crime where the public can actually help out. So the police will say, hey, look, this is how you can help this out. Now, firstly, have you guys seen this program?
I have, yeah.
It's ladies' night.
Hey, what's the language?
With the brashest,
Step away from my vehicle, please.
boldest, ballsiest ladies around.
I think that this is a
Police
a
10-7
dandy
special
program.
ladies' night. Thursday on 2 and on demand.
So I mean, look, I enjoyed this program. I have enjoyed this program for years. I enjoyed this program when it was called Crime Watch. I actually enjoyed it. I didn't care what skin color the people were. It didn't bother me one little bit that most of them were brown, because that was a statistical fact. And I knew that, and I still love my culture. I love my people, and I love all the rest of the people. I don't care what skin color you are. Like Martin Luther King, don't be judged by the color of your skin, be judged by the content of your character.
Absolutely.
So when you're talking about just saying that you want to change a program because you feel that it doesn't fit a quota of white people, Asians, or some other for negative purposes, that's actually a bit of a problem. And I'll tell you my real big issue with this, because Police 10-7 are basically going to have to change a little. They're going to have to get quotas. That's the only way I can see it. They're going to have to get quotas of white people, of, I don't know, Indians, or whoever. And this is actually where I get really, really angry with this, because after 20 years of working in and amongst our people, and I'll say our people as a Māori and Pacifica, and also being a bit of an at-risk youth for a stage of my life as well, I can tell you that most of the people who are on Police 10-7, that sort of crime comes from Pacifica and Māori people. Mostly Māori, and then Pacifica. Now, that's just straight up fact. That is not some sort of Illuminati attack trying to make brown people and white colonialism nonsense. It's not. And so, while you see that millions of dollars and government power and systematic strength is being attacking this, they are forgetting what is actually really at the heart and the core of the struggles that we're having in South Auckland and West Auckland, and where these issues are. That is fatherlessness, broken homes and fatherlessness. Because broken homes and fatherlessness does not get into the reports as to why Police 10-7 is there, as to why we have more Māori in prisons, as to why we have less educational achievement through Māori and then Pacifica people. They don't talk about family. They don't talk about whānau. They don't talk about ainga. They don't talk about families. Instead, they want to talk about white colonialism and innate guilt and unconscious bias, where the fact is that the majority of our criminal behavior is not skin color oriented or culture oriented. It is from broken homes, and the majority of those broken homes is fatherlessness, no fathers. So I find it offensive to see that we're going to see that Police 10-7 is having to change, not because of anything to do with family or the true cause, the true areas of causality of criminality, but in fact it's simply to do with wokeness and an attack on it. And so we're going to see a veneer of fakeness, and I hate that. I really do. Sorry, that's my rant.
And it's interesting you say, you talk about fatherlessness, Elliot. Just yesterday, they have passed a bill It is right there in the chat box, in which they are extending the support, the social welfare available for subsequent children. And what will that do? If you could just, if you open that link. So if you look at it, this is this thing, social security, removal of the subsequent child policy removal bill. So otherwise, if you had a second child, you had to prepare for work sooner. Now that's also been pushed to 14 years, the whole thing. So otherwise, it was a case of, your youngest child, and when that child has gone on, you are now increasing the dependency on the state. This is a poverty of ambition. Not having, the same thing that you were saying about not having a father figure. When you're talking about all of this, these sort of welfares, they are mostly single mother benefits, who are availing of this, broken homes. What is this sort of legislation going to do?
Exactly what
it is all under a cloak of kindness. But when I see it, from where I see it, this is killing motivation.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I'm just going to jump in there because I'll give a real quick, brief one, which is when I got into politics. The reason why I got into politics was because when I went into youth work and I realized that the families were struggling and that we're not actually winning. Instead, we're actually slowly losing the war for the hearts and our souls of our children. What I found then was when I backtracked that, what I found is that, broken homes and majority of that with no fathers. Backtracked that and then looked into the stats around family and family deconstruction and where did the family break down. And it's mostly around Māori whānau are the ones where you can look at the most. And Māori families did not break down during the times of so-called colonization. They did not even break down in the urban migration part. They broke down in the late 70s and early 80s, which came about just after the 1974 DPB. The 1974 DPB was probably well-meaning, but what it did do was it subsidized solo parenthood, and just as Jaspreet has just said, is very much about that mum-only family. And so the benefits just got added on top, layered, and just as Jaspreet you're saying, it removed resilience, it removed tenacity, it removed the idea of being resourceful, the idea of actually going hungry and then having to have thoughts about how to make it through in life. It took it all away. You've taken the warrior out of the warrior, and you've left Māori to be just sucking on the teat of social welfare. I've taught kids who are from 16 to 19-year-olds. I taught those kids for quite a while, and they knew more about the social welfare system than I ever would. They knew it down to a T. They knew what age, at what time, and what law to go for, as well as if I have 1, 2, or 3 kids, how many I can have to get how much money. And they knew it all. And I was absolutely shocked by the level of dependency that there is. And now, and thank you for showing us that, I want to have a read of that as well. It looks like they're going to add to that dependency.
Police lives matter?
Just shocking.
It's ridiculous what's happening. And we are going along with this. Most of the time, if you don't speak up, your consent is just taken. That, you're going along with this nonsense. And I find courage is contagious. If you start speaking in your own truth, I will not deny I have lost friends. I have. I will also not deny that part of the Indian community here would rather not have, keep a safe distance from me, because I speak what I don't like. I will never approve of the state or the local council giving us money for Diwali or Holi or some festival, because I believe, that makes everything one big party, and you would lose the cultural significance of what the festival was when suddenly, you have the... So I'm never one for free money, despite whatever. This is not me. I'm going to speak out. But you find other people. You will lose some, but most people are too scared, thinking you will lose your group of friends or whatever. So what? You have to say, if you're going along with this, then 10 years, 15 years, 20 years later, your kids will be in the same position. Your grandkids would be.
I totally agree, especially with around our children. And if you don't speak up for them now, what do they have? What kind of legacy are you going to leave them? What do you have right now? What do you have in your hand? What difference can you make? Even if you don't feel like you're of any, you do have a sphere of influence. It doesn't matter, how big it is or how small it is. You do have something, and you can hold that for your children. You want them to look back and go, my mum or my dad, wasn't silent about that. They stood up for it, and then you'll find that they will themselves grow a backbone, that will be able to be strengthened. We right now we're basking in just so much of what our forefathers fought for. So all of our freedoms, like you said before, Jaspreet, is that we've been basking in this for so long that we don't know what it's like to not have it. And until
Yes.
we actually feel it and we feel the pinch of it, we'll never understand or be grateful for what we have.
Now, you need
Definitely.
to have a price. When you pay a price for something, you take care of it. You value it. Something that has cost you flesh and blood, you value it. You realize
Yeah.
when it's going away. You hold on to the last vestiges of it.
Yeah.
And I think those are hopeful words, courage is contagious. And I think I'm very blessed and honored to be sharing the screen here with two courageous people. And I
Right
think
back
it's going
at
to be
you
exciting.
guys.
I believe that, are you guys going anywhere tomorrow at all? Is there a possibility you'll be shooting off somewhere?
Oh yes, oh yes. We are going to speak up for children and the vaccinations that are happening without informed consent being given to our youth about the myocarditis risk, which, according to recent FDA submissions to FDA, it's on their website, have gone up from 1 in a million to 1 in 1,000 risk of myocarditis.
Right, 1 in 1 million to 1 in 1,000. I did not see that.
Yeah.
Right,
Yep.
okay, yeah, okay, right.
So
So that's
yeah.
happening. That's happening tomorrow. That's happening throughout the nation, I believe. That's happening at many different plot spots in New Zealand. So just for you guys who are out there, so Leah and I, we will be going to the Auckland one, and Justpreet will be going to the
In the Cargill one.
Invercargill one. Oh, one of
Yeah.
my best mates ever. He came from Invercargill. Odd chap. That's hey, Invercargill people. Awesome. So look, if we see you there, it would be great to see you there. I'm going to be going around having chit chats and all that sort of good stuff. Be careful, be safe for yourselves. I'll leave the last words with Justpreet and Liao. Justpreet, what would you like? What would you like to finish off with?
This is a country worth saving. Absolutely. Believe in it and start talking to people. That's all it takes. Start talking to your next door neighbor, one person at a time. You'd be amazed at what you can do. Absolutely amazed. Speak up.
Well said. Well said. Liao.
I want you to stop saying be safe. From now on, I want you to say to people, be brave.
Oi.
Okay, because
Oi.
because if you stop, because safety is an illusion. Being brave is not. So whenever you go to say be safe to people, just don't say it. Just say be brave. And then each individual person will find what that brave is. So bless you guys. Just so great to be part of this conversation tonight.
All right, keep it up, guys. God bless you, and we'll see you on the next one. God bless you, and God bless New Zealand.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Ka kite.